Vaccine mandates are in full effect for federal employees and state employees across the country. Will it affect other areas? The January 6th Commission hearings are underway. Of course, there's a political agenda. And more drama surrounds the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. I'm Nico Fedele, and this is For the Republic.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We already have 5 episodes under our belt. I'm so grateful for all of you who have supported this project. We are just getting started. For those watching who haven't already, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. You can be notified when the next episode is available by clicking on the bell icon. Lastly, for those listening to the audio, leave a review. That would be a huge help. The January 6th committee has been assembled, and the first hearing went down last Tuesday, July 27th. This hearing featured Capitol Police agents giving their testimonies of the traumatic event.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated. I now recognize Sergeant Cornell to summarize his testimony.
When I was 25 years old and then a sergeant in the Army, I had deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. But on January 6, for the first time, I was more afraid to work at the Capitol than my entire deployment to Iraq.
My name, for those of you who don't know, is Michael Fedele. Yet what I witnessed and experienced on January 6, 2021 was unlike anything I had ever seen.
I now recognize Officer Hodges to summarize his testimony.
We started that day at 7:30 a.m., and our assignment at the time was to maintain high visibility along Constitution Avenue, namely the blocks leading up to President's Park, where then President Donald Trump was holding his gathering.
I now recognize Officer Dunn to summarize his testimony.
I reported for duty at the Capitol as usual early on the morning of January 6. We understood that the vote to certify President Biden's election would be taking place that day, and protests might occur outside the Capitol.
January 6th was a dramatic, fearful experience for these officers. I have nothing but sympathy for them. And you know what? It's wrong to attack law enforcement. I will be the first to admit it. At any time. That includes the police being attacked during the BLM riots in 2020. You know, we got this commission and this hearing all set up, and we have this emotional testimony from the police officers. How about the emotional testimonies from the police officers from the BLM riots? No, I don't think we're going to see those. Because I'm also wise enough to know the agenda hiding behind the curtain. These emotional testimonies aren't going to reveal any more information, and that's the point. We already know what happened on January 6th. It was a day of violence, and those who breached the Capitol should be charged and in jail. But we already see that happening. I mean, at least 550 people have been charged with a crime linked to that dreadful day. So, if there are any questions that need answering, they should be questions like, why was it so easy for rioters to just walk in the Capitol in the first place? I mean, there was intel before January 6th. Before that day, there was intel that was uncovered that there was going to be a demonstration at the Capitol. So why weren't they prepared? See, you won't get these answers. You won't get these answers at these hearings because the committee is not interested in the truth. They are only interested in smearing former President Trump and the Republican Party. And they'll go through great lengths to do that, like using the tears of the officers to their advantage.
I, too, was being crushed by the rioters. I could feel myself losing oxygen and recall thinking to myself, this is how I'm going to die, defending this entrance. I had to push my wife away from me because she wanted to hug me. And I told her no, because of all the chemical that my uniform had on.
During those moments, I remember thinking there was a very good chance I would be torn apart or shot to death with my own weapon. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
The man in front of me grabbed my baton that I still held in my hands, and in my current state, I was unable to retain my weapon. He bashed me in the head and face with it, rupturing my lip and adding additional injury to my skull. At this point, I knew I couldn't sustain much more damage and remain upright. At best, I would collapse and be a liability to my colleagues. At worst, be dragged out into the crowd and lynched. Unable to move or otherwise signal the officers behind me that I needed to fall back, I did the only thing that I could do and screamed for help.
Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo!" No one had ever called me a while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer.
They hit you in the feels, which makes anyone vulnerable, and it's a distraction. It's disgusting. These clips of the testimonies are what you will see across the media outlets because they are emotional and they demonize Trump. The Democrat Party has become the party of empathy. They use emotion and sadness to invoke their policies, and the media is all about it. They just eat it up. Mainstream Democrats know they are losing their fan base because of the radical ideas being pushed by this administration. I mean, we have spending that's being blown out the wazoo. I mean, Biden's approval rating has plummeted just in the last few months. And the tyrannical mask mandates and vaccine mandates, those are being pushed. Nobody on the Senate agrees with any of it. They want secure borders. But the way to counter this, the way to distract from all of these actual issues, is they divide. They want to show how racist and hateful all Republicans are. That's right. These Democrats want to connect everyone who doesn't agree with their policies to the domestic terrorism that took place on January 6th. I mean, Democrats, their goal is to paint the picture of two sides in order to win the independent voter. They have one side over here that's big. They say that's big government. They say, give us the control. We'll take care of you. We'll solve all the problems. I mean, that side doesn't really look that great, but compared to the other side that they're painting, the alternative is radical white supremacists, violent fascists that want to tear down democracy. And there's no middle ground. Of course, you have to pick a side. The side of good intentions versus the side of bad intentions. Democrats want to make their side look better than it is. And to do this, they have to make the other side look as repulsive and inhumane as they can. And for this to work, it all has to hinge on proving that Donald Trump invoked violence during his speech. Then they connect that to anyone who has agreed with Trump's policies. They say, if you agree with Trump, you must be the same as the barbarians who breached the Capitol on January 6th. Any political viewpoint that can be tied back to Trump or the right, you somehow condone that what happened at the Capitol. And this is what the Democrat Party has become. Everything is politicized. Ethics, morals, behavior, it's all political. It all has to have a political agenda. So if you agree with Trump's economic policies, well, by association, you must agree with the crap he's defecated all over Twitter. And somehow you must be okay with the way Trump talked about women 20 years ago because you want a president who enforces legal immigration. Obviously, this mindset doesn't make any sense. These hearings are just the latest attempt to split the country into two sides. They are a sham. And House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, he knows it. He pulled the 5 members he selected for the committee after Pelosi vetoed 2 of them, Representatives Jim Jordan of Ohio and Jim Beggs of Indiana. This move by Pelosi was unprecedented. No leader has blocked another party from appointing members for a select committee. So instead of the Republicans being fairly represented, Pelosi selected 2 Republicans, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Both voted to impeach Trump, and both have made it their sole purpose in life to alienate Trump from the Republican Party. Now, what we just talked about, this may seem counterproductive with what Pelosi aims to achieve. But she knows that the more you point the finger at Trump, the more ammunition you give to the Democrats and the media. Representative Liz Cheney questioned the officers, and she was pulling out all the stops here, making it clear what her intentions are.
And then you hear former President Trump say, quote, "It was a loving crowd. There was a lot of love in the crowd." How does that make you feel?
It's upsetting. It's a pathetic excuse for his behavior for something that he himself helped to create.
This question could not be more irrelevant to the facts about the insurrection. But again, nobody on the committee actually cares about the facts. If you care about the facts, you ask questions that can be answered with facts. The witnesses weren't asked these questions. Instead, they were asked how they felt and what their feelings are. This kind of questioning calls for answers subjective to the person answering them, and those answers are used to push a political agenda. It is absolutely repulsive for Cheney to prey upon the post-traumatic experiences these officers have faced. What's even more repulsive is her use of their trauma to stir up discord and manipulate the American people. I mean, this question is just so stupid. There were over 30,000 people at Trump's rally that day. Many of them probably are loving people. A majority of these people did, in fact, peacefully protest at the Capitol. So, just because a few hundred of them did a bad thing does not make all of them bad. But this goes right along with the agenda of the left, one side or the other. How come Democrats can say millions of Americans are insurrectionists because they voted for Trump, when Republicans get ostracized when they just mention the billions of dollars of property damage caused by the BLM riots? I mean, let's just stop and think about it for a second. Let's compare the Capitol breach with the BLM riots. The BLM riots lasted all summer last year in 2020 during the height of a pandemic. People not wearing masks, people throwing stuff in the streets, people looting, people rioting, people tearing down businesses, people burning down Wendy's, people burning down Walmart, people burning down businesses. And I'm old enough to remember that Kamala Harris started a campaign, started a fundraiser for these people to get out of jail. And mainstream Democrats followed right along with it. But it's not fair. It's not fair that you can't point this out without being ostracized. It's not fair that everyone with conservative values get lumped together with the scrubs that invaded the Capitol. I mean, the Capitol was just one day, was just one event. And yes, I understand that it was tragic. It was a threat to our democracy. It was an insurrection. I'm willing to use all the terms to call it what it is. But let's look back. Let's look back at how the Democrats talked about the BLM riots. It was mostly peaceful. There is not one person on the left that would ever say January 6th was mostly peaceful. The left has been playing dirty politics for so long, and that most people are blinded to the hypocrisy of their positions. Dare I say, there aren't more than a handful of Democrat politicians who would even entertain the thought of comparing the 2020 summer riots to the Capitol breach. Why? Because that would humanize Republicans and destroy the narrative. And the media helped the Democrats get away with it. It's time to wake up. Don't buy into it. Republicans have more problems than just the occasional Trojan horse. My representative, Elise Stefanik, has caught some flack for the comments she has made recently about the Speaker of the House.
The reason why Nancy Pelosi is refusing to seat accomplished and well-respected hardworking Republicans like Jim Jordan and Jim Banks is because she doesn't want the American people to know the truth or learn the facts. She doesn't want a fair or bipartisan investigation. She wants a political one. It is a fact that in December of 2020, Nancy Pelosi was made aware of potential security threats to the Capitol, and she failed to act. It is a fact that the U.S. Capitol Police raised concerns, and rather than providing them with the support and resources they needed and they deserved, she prioritized her partisan political optics over their safety. The American people deserve to know the truth that Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility as Speaker of the House for the tragedy that occurred on January 6th.
While Elise Stefanik might want answers to what Nancy Pelosi knew and what authority she did or did not exercise, using the tactics of the left by accusing without evidence is not the way to get the answers. Stefanik is passionate and goes on the offensive here, and while I commend her for showing backbone, fighting fire with fire is self-defeating. At least with this situation, the Republican Party still has a moral compass. It always goes wrong when they abandon it for the sake of political strategy. Trump found this out early on in his presidency. He tried to fight like the left, but he quickly understood that the media will use it against him and get away with it. That's what's happening here with Stefanik. Though most of what she says about Pelosi is true, the headlines are making her look foolish. And you can see Jake Tapper goes after her with our good buddy Liz Cheney.
To counter the committee hearing with their press conference where their basic message was Speaker Pelosi is to blame. I mean, that's obviously nonsense. Speaker Pelosi is not in charge of security in the House any more than then Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was. What's your reaction when you hear them try to blame Pelosi for an insurrection incited and inspired and even directed in some ways by Donald Trump?
Well, I would say a couple of things, Jake. Number one, this committee is going to investigate every aspect of what happened. Number two, if I were saying the things that you just played, I'd be deeply ashamed of myself. What happened is absolutely clear. We had, as we heard this morning, just intolerable cruelty. A mob that was assembled by President Trump was provoked by him. He lit the flame for what happened. We've seen that not just in the speech on the ellipse, but throughout. Anybody to be suggesting that somehow he wasn't responsible, I think it's shameful.
Unbelievable. This game that the media plays, Stefanik is purposely taken out of context here. They only use one little bit of it. And yes, I'm critical of Stefanik for using the words that she's used, or even suggest that Pelosi is to blame for any of the January 6th insurrection. I don't like it when people try to blame Trump for the insurrection, and we can see that Cheney is saying the quiet part out loud here. She is saying that it's Trump's fault. Like, seriously, what's the point of the investigation? You have one side of your mouth, you're saying that you're going to have a full, fair investigation. You're going to ask all the questions. You're going to get to the facts. You're going to get to the bottom of it. And then you just come out and say loud and clear that, oh, it's Trump. It's Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault. She says it clear as day. So the whole thing is just a waste of time. It's an attempt to keep the January 6th of the Capitol breach relevant. You got to keep it in the media, and it's to distract the people, the American people, from what's really going on. And you're asking yourself, well, what is really going on? Well, it's vaccine mandates. Meanwhile, while these hearings are going on, state employees in both California and New York are required to be vaccinated. And furthermore, President Biden has announced Thursday that all federal employees and federal contractors are required to be vaccinated. And it doesn't stop there. It's also invaded the private sector as well. Disney theme park and Walmart corporate employees are required to be vaccinated. Disney is giving their employees 60 days to comply, while Walmart says their employees have until October. Walmart is also giving out monetary incentives to those who get vaccinated. Well, why do companies have to mandate and essentially pay their employees to get vaccinated? It's because the messaging has been contradicted so many times that the people don't trust any of the institutions. The CDC is now recommending people in hotspots and students in school K through 12 to wear masks. I mean, kindergartners to wear masks, and it's regardless of vaccination. So kids in high school have to wear masks even if they're vaccinated. I'm sorry, but the people under 18 in the U.S., the number of people who have died under 18 to COVID is 350. 350 out of a pool of 75 million people. 350 people have died from COVID, and you're going to require a 4-year-old to mask up in school? This is just ridiculous. And Chip Roy, the Republican out of Texas, sums up the hypocrisy perfectly.
It's absolutely absurd what this body is doing, the People's House. It's an embarrassment. It's a mockery. And the American people are fed up. They want to go back to life. They want to go back to business. They want to go back to school without their children being forced to wear masks, to be put in the corner, to have mental health issues. And we're running around here, and the speaker comes down here at 10 o'clock in the morning saying, we got to wear masks? We got to go around and see, okay, we can't come to the floor. I can't execute my constitutional duty unless I wear a mask. Well, which is it? Vaccines or masks? Do the vaccines work or they don't work? Do the masks work or they don't work? I'd like to know which it is. I'd like Dr. Fauci to come down and answer a single question about natural immunity. If you've been infected with a virus, do you have immunity? Or are they just going to go around poking people saying you must take a vaccine? Oh, but sorry, the vaccine doesn't work. You must wear a mask. This institution is a sham, and we should adjourn and shut this place down.
He's absolutely right. I'm old enough to remember when the vaccine was the end of the pandemic. This is what the CDC said. This is what Fauci said, even the media. But now there's a new Delta variant, and this means we have to start the process all over again. Nope, sorry. I'm not buying it. The CDC, Anthony Fauci, the White House, the media, they have all undermined their credibility with this endless circle. It's just a power grab. The data doesn't support any of these mandates, and we don't know enough about the Delta variant to just all of a sudden start over. No. American people want to see progress. They want to go back to what they want to go back to their lives. They do not accept this as the new normal. Where COVID and the pandemic is essentially over. It's not a crisis anymore. And if you're going to treat the status that we're in right now as like the heightened of the pandemic, then it's just going to be this vicious cycle and we're never going to get out of it. And I think that might be the point. That might be the point to just, we're never going to get out of this pandemic. And the American people know it. The American people are not buying it. They're not buying this power grab. They do not trust the institutions. They do not trust the media. And for good reason. They keep going around in circles, around and round and round, flip-flopping. Anthony Fauci, I mean, it's incredible if you look at the montage of Anthony Fauci flip-flopping on masking, flip-flopping on vaccinations. And he says that the data has changed. The virus has changed, but not the CDC or not the positions. It's just the data. The data's changed. No, the data hasn't changed. We've known for quite some time what COVID is, and we know the risks associated with it. We know that it's you are especially vulnerable if you're above the age of 65. But still, above the age of 65, you have over a 95% chance of surviving. I mean, come on. Like, we have to do all of this for one group who's 95% likely not to die? Come on. It's just ridiculous. And the American people know it. This week on For the Entertainment, the Tokyo Olympics has been nothing short of dramatic so far, beginning with the stunning exit of fan favorite Simone Biles. Biles, who was heavily favored to win big in women's gymnastics, shocked millions Thursday night when she suddenly withdrew from the women's team final. Team USA cited her departure as a medical issue, while Biles herself stated she needed to work on her mental health. Thursday, she also pulled out of the women's all-around final. Facing mounting criticism, Biles made some clarifications about her condition on Friday. She stated that, quote, her mind and body simply are not in sync, end quote. She talked about her struggle with the twisties. The twisties is a phenomenon where a gymnast loses the sense of where they are while in the air. The twisties can easily be the gymnastics' worst nightmare and cause serious injuries. Biles' blight has many Americans divided, with some calling her a coward and others a hero. What's my take? Biles is neither. Biles is simply an athlete who has exceptional talent at what she does, and she recognized that she cannot perform to the best of her ability. So for that reason, she withdrew. Does that make her a hero and champion for mental health? No, of course not. But it also doesn't make her a villain who has abandoned and failed her country. I mean, the athletes selected to represent the USA are the best of the best. They're selected because they train hard, hour after hour, perfecting their performance to achieve the highest recognition and progress in their sports. These athletes are chosen because of their talent. And if you can't live up to that talent, or if you can't compete to the best of your ability, do you think that you can't compete to what you were selected for? And that's why they are selected. They are selected because they are the best of what they do. And Simone Biles realized that she wasn't at her best. She realized that she could not achieve what she was selected to do. So she decided to step back and give someone else a shot. And that's exactly the right move. I'm glad she had the maturity to make it. This liberal either-or mentality would once again have you believe that there must be an extreme option. The side of the good intentions versus the side of the bad intentions. You either have to celebrate Biles' bravery in speaking out on behalf of mental illness, or you're disgusted by the thought and believe the Olympics athletes owe you a gold medal regardless. The truth, however, is found in neither opinion, but rather in the facts. The sooner we recognize the facts are not based on how we feel, the sooner we can make an educated and informed opinion. So what's your take on this controversial move? Let me know in the comments below. Now, let's mention some of the notable achievements thus far in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. While Biles was unable to perform in the women's all-around competition, Sunsia Lee stepped up and won gold for the USA. Lee, who came to Tokyo believing she didn't even have a chance at gold, edged out the competition in a solid performance Thursday evening. Carissa Moore also made waves at the 2020 Olympics when she became the first woman to win gold in her sport. Surfing made its Olympic debut, and with it, Moore achieved a stunning victory for the USA. Another epic win for the U.S. came from Army First Lieutenant Amber English. English not only won gold in skeet shooting, but set a new Olympic record as well. Thank you, Amy English, for your service to our country, and congratulations on the medal. Lastly, Lee Kiefer won the very first U.S. gold medal in women's foil fencing. Her winning match was breathtaking and added another victory for our country. Now that you've got my notable picks, comment below with what your favorite part of 2020 Tokyo Olympics so far is. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of For the Republic. If you enjoyed the show, drop a like, comment, and consider subscribing to the channel. If you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, please consider leaving a review. I would greatly appreciate it. You can help grow the community by commenting below and sharing this episode. Follow For the Republic on social media to get the latest updates. A new episode will premiere here next Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. For now, be blessed and Godspeed.